Well, before I start, a big thank you to Fountain Pens UK, particularly to Bernardo for hosting these 12 talks before Christmas. It's an excellent idea. And as this is quite a sort of a niche area, I think, and it's still very early doors, it's great to be able to talk about something which I think is has got a long way to go. So it's all quite exciting stuff, and it's, as I said, it's very early days. I'm Nick Stewart. I'm based in Rochester. I'm a graphic designer by profession, but I'm also running a personal project, and Bernardo's very kindly asked me to talk about creating art using fountain pen ink and bleach. So to start off, I first became aware of fountain pen ink, obviously when I was at school, and like anybody else at the time, I never thought of it anything other than just something I would stick in a fountain pen to write with and to write essays, etc. And that's as far as it went. And I think for most people, we just take this stuff completely for granted, that we instantly assume it just goes in a fountain pen and that's that, end of story. But it wasn't until I went to art college, must have been back in 1982, that I was very lucky to be tutored by the calligrapher Miriam Stribley. And one of her mediums that she made us use was what you're seeing on the screen here, which was Parker Quink ink. It was cheap and it was quite cheerful. And we were all quite surprised to see it, I think, in our toolkits. But she showed us how to break this down using water. And she also showed us how to really make it look exciting by adding just a little bit of household bleach. So our first, shall we say, projects, or breakdown projects, as she used to call them, was literally looking at this thing called chromatography, where the ink, when it's mixed with water, will come out a solution into the different colors that make it up. And this is some really old Quink in front of me now, just showing you some dancing and exciting stuff which was done with bleach. Very old. Where are we here? The other thing that we did at college was we didn't use fountain pens, which I know a lot of you listening are into fountain pens. We used a whole range of different pens, which were dip pens, automatic pens, and brushes. And we also made our own pens out of bamboo cane. And as you can see, some bastardized toys. You can see there's a doll's hand there, which was all good fun. So there was a lot of stuff going on at college, and she was very, very particular for us to really push the boundaries in terms of medium. So that's the ink, the bleach, the brushes, surface material, and also the size that we used to work. But more important than that, she was very, very keen for us to blur the lines of constraint, that she really did ask us to look outside of the envelope. So we were looking at typography, as it was a design graphics illustration course. We were looking very much at type and trying to use it in a more illustrative way. This is a very old project, one of the first ones I ever did, which was looking at some packaging for sea salt. And it was just using Schaefer Peacock Blue, graded down into Schaefer Black, and then going straight in with an automatic pen using bleach and giving that sort of sense of, the idea was to make it waves. I mean, that was just purely a little sample. It didn't go any further than that. But I think it just shows the dynamism that even at that time, we were looking at making typography far more exciting than just some of the stuff that you see today. So let's go back one. This particular piece was made from Schaefer Peacock Blue, Schaefer Black and Brown, Parker Quink and Parker Red, and they were all the colours that I had at the time. And in all honesty, they were the only colours that I knew that existed. And so it's just an extract from Midsummer Night's Dream, and it's using the chromatic effects of the inks and freeform bleach. So while I was there, I did a lot of work, much of which I haven't got time to show you tonight. But since I left college, I went straight into hardcore graphics, which wasn't exactly exciting. But I did get the odd typographic job using the stuff that I had learned with Miriam. And this was one of my favorites. It was the logotype for the three tenors, where you've got this lovely abstract three, which I was very, very proud of. And they're still using it today, even though I think there are three tenors, although there were four at one stage. But anyway, it's still being used, and it's something that I did enjoy doing. This is something a little bit more recent. Once again, it's using that abstract calligraphy taught by Miriam, and Bob King, who was the creative director, used the idea of my bleach to actually create the fiddler at the back there. And it's all to do with that bleach and quink effect. So I think it's slowly starting to happen. And one last one there, which is a more recent one, which is using that automatic pen again and quink. Just coming up with some abstract typography, which is the new logotype for the Diana musical. So even though I had my hand in the graphics area and I was working up in London, I was desperate to get back to things after a while. I think there's only so much time you can spend behind a computer and doing corporate graphics. And in 2008, I was very lucky to be doing some very, very limited teaching with the University of Creative Arts. And just as an experiment, we decided that we'd make a large brush. And I went down to see Parker at New Haven, and they gave me a couple of barrels of ink. And basically, we built this brush out of a whole range of different textiles, and decided to do some giant calligraphy and run some workshops, which really did start getting my sort of interest rekindled again after quite a few years of being away from it. Bernardo, are you okay?
Yeah, sorry, Nick, 1 minute. I'll need to take the host for 1 minute because there are people in the lobby waiting to get in. 1 second.
Yeah, of course.
1 second. Let me see if I don't interrupt you, if I don't, you know, break everything. Okay. Oh, yes, it worked. So, okay. So you can keep going, and I won't bother you anymore.
You jump in whenever you like.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much, Nick.
All right. So this is around about 2008 with this giant brush, and we were using some, once again, I had a whole range of a couple of barrels of quink and quite a lot of domestos, and started doing some very, very large scale freeform artwork. It was purely abstract, but it was exciting and very physical. And yeah, it was great fun, which led on to a sixth form, oh, sorry. And yeah, I did a couple of pieces for commission as well, which were quite interesting. And you can see they're sort of just a bit different. So around about 2011, I came across a lady who's a neighbour of ours who works at Rochester Cathedral, and she was commissioned or tasked with trying to get sixth form students to come to the cathedral, and she wasn't quite sure how to go about it. So we sat down and we just had a little bit of a brainstorming session, and I said to her, and I suggested to her that I wouldn't mind running some workshops with some sixth form students across North Kent. Would she be interested? So it happened to coincide with the anniversary of the King James Bible. And lo and behold, 16 students turned up. and we began our project. And I learned as much from them, I think, as they learned from me. And they were laying huge backgrounds of ink and water and bleach and coming up with these incredible giant pieces of work. As you can see here, it was very exciting to be part of this. And then we put these together within the crypt as these giant banners. And it was a tremendous success. I got a hell of a lot out of it. I think we had something like 15,000 people came through the doors at the end of the day. But it was very, very different. And that's just pure ink and bleach. And I was very proud of them. And in fact, some of them are still doing it. So we had a whole range of styles for these 16 students. It really was a sight to behold. So life went on. And I really did enjoy doing that. And I did a few more workshops with the Rochester Cathedral. But by early 2015, I have to say I was really becoming a little bit disillusioned with the commercial graphics side of things. And it was a bit of a light bulb moment for me, because I don't know where this light came on, but I was thinking that with all the technology that you can get nowadays with smartphones, I was just seeing so much art out there, which was literally just a photograph put through a filter and then copied. And I just couldn't see the point of it. And I was just craving, I suppose, to go back to what I'd learned with Miriam. And just on an absolute whim, I thought to myself, well, I wonder if there are more than 5 coloured inks out there. And I went to Google, and I got a bit of a shock, because I didn't realise there were just so many. And it really was a shock. And so I think I ordered about 10 sample vials from a little company called Stationery, I think it's Stationery UK up in Scotland. And these inks came through, and there was a mixture of some sort of noodlers, which I've never ever heard of, and a few other brands. And I made some swatch cards, and I had been looking at the fountain pen network and looking at how people were analysing inks. And I thought, well, that's not really what I want to do. I wanted to do something a little bit more creative. And so I designed a little swatch card, which was chromatically based, which would then show how the ink would look when written through a pen, but also how it might behave if we put some bleach with it. And so I started to collect sample vials. And the first thing I did was I came across this guy called Brian Goulet in America. And he seemed to have this enormous collection of inks. So I thought, well, I might as well go for it. So I wrote to him and I said, look, Brian, I'm doing this. I'm going to start swatch carding, and I want to try all these inks out to see what they're like. Well, he sent me this massive, great box of vials. I think there must have been about 900 in all, which is very kind of him. And I just cracked on with it. And so that led on to basically a serious amount of time spent swatch carding. And I really enjoyed doing it. And it was a very, very sort of productive time of just constant swatch carding. And of course, that was getting me well away from the boredom of the commercial graphics. And it was exciting, really exciting. I think, as you can see from here, these are some sailor cards of just all the different colors that are coming out of solution, the way they're reacting with bleach and water. And well, it's just in the element. It was just this fantastic art out of destruction. There's this wonderfully arty, pretentious sort of title that everyone uses in the game. And it was true. It was just beautiful art out of destruction. And I was having a great time. But of course, I had to start doing something with it. And so I thought to myself, right, well, here we go. I'm going to start a personal project. So I set the blog up. I started to post some of these swatch cards, and also started, when I had time, to try and make something out of this. And so I started off by taking what I'd learned onto swatch cards and seeing if I could give it a simple art feel. And so I came up with this sort of swatch painting idea, whereby I would literally just divide my swatch card into thirds. The top 2/3, I would just add water, and then I would put some ink in, see what happened, and then I would add a bottom area. So it looked a little bit like a landscape, and it was nothing more than that, or a seascape. And this is using Diamond Earl Grey, and I think it had something. I really think it had something. It was fast, it was quick, and it was unpredictable. There's nothing to do with plagiarism or rendering or copying or pastiching. It was lovely. It was fresh, and it excited me. And it was simple. And the ink played a big part in creating the art. And I just love that whole idea of the chromatography and the serendipity working in harmony. And yeah, there was something very spiritual about this. And so to the next stage, it was about looking at taking that into a more technical area of using that bleach together with the chromatography and seeing what could be done. And I surprised myself that I could actually achieve some very tight lettering and patterns just by using a zebra G nib in a dip pen holder. So that was great. And the other thing that was becoming apparent was the fact that this wonderful medium was beginning to show some real signs of individuality, that I could work white into black, or in this case, bleach into the ink, where you're working in reverse. So I thought to myself, well, hang on, suddenly when I'm starting to think about it, this medium can not only work in the traditional way of medium on white paper, I can work the opposite way around as well. And it's definitely visually impactful. And so the project's got a little bit more complex, and the nights got longer, and I was getting totally engrossed with it. It was just it was another world. And at the same time, I was looking online for people who might be doing something similar with ink and bleach, and I was pleased to see that there were people doing it. But I was disappointed the fact that there weren't enough people doing it. And I was also disappointed that people hadn't really cottoned onto this chromatography bit. So it was a case to keep going. And so I was looking at more and more stuff, and then I came across Robert Oster. And Robert was a really helpful guy, and I contacted him. Well, actually, he contacted me first, and we had a chat, and he sent me over some inks to play with. And wow, you know, his stuff with this is using one of his dark blacks, and they were just totally built differently to some of the other inks that I'd come across. And then I got into noodlers, and I just thought they were crazy. And this is noodlers Rome burning with some walnut underneath. And I was just amazed that this particular range of inks was just so eccentric that I couldn't believe how many colors were coming out of this one ink, this Rome burning. But I was also really impressed by this black muck, which was coming out of the walnut as well. It was this pigmentation. And it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I mean, who would believe that this stuff was stuff that people found in fountain pens? And then back to Robert again, and his inks were just really doing something for me. I mean, these were really simple chromo skies with these incredible colors coming out of one ink. I've no idea what his process is. It's obviously very different to the guy who does the noodlers. And that's another thing that I was finding fascinating, that each ink house had its own cook who was cooking up different recipes. And of course, their own inks would all behave differently. This is Robert again. This is using some of his Sydney blues. And that was just a pastiche of, that's a Homer. Forget his surname now. But an American painter. Very simple, beautiful. And then I started looking at KWZ, and there are other ink manufacturers and people getting in touch. It was quite an exciting time. There was Diamine, Robert Oster, KNZ, Krishna, Troublemaker, Pannonia, Beaufort, Pure Pens, Papier and Stift, and Blackstone were sending me stuff to actually play around with, and it was a very exciting time. Once again, you know, these inks were behaving like watercolors, but they didn't have any sediment in them. So you were getting these really vivid, pure blends. And then without having to use a China white, which you would do possibly with, or a sandpaper or a scalpel blade, I was using bleach. So these little houses here, on these little Scottish crofts, I just put a little bit of bleach on there just to highlight the exterior walls that had the sunlight on them. Likewise with this seagull, just a tiny bit of bleach just to highlight the edges of those wings and the seagull's head. Then I came across Diametris, and yes, they were quite interesting as well. And this is an ink called Ebony, which is really a dark brown. But as you can see, you've got these incredible reds and pinks coming out of it, the greys. And then I just worked on top of this with their own logo, just using bleach, using a Zebra G nib and a rigger brush. And it was from this that I really wanted to take that rigger brush further, and I suppose my toolkit started to take shape. This is Krishna pencil, another phenomenally amazing ink. It's this sort of reddy brown, but when you add it with water, you get this green, which you see on those lovely plants, which we call lamb's ears. They're sort of like a furry leaf. The colour's amazing. And of course, with the bleach, out of one ink, you know, you've got this beautiful sort of typical English sort of landscape with the sheep, and just very fast and very complete, because it's not overworked and it's all from one colour. So even though we know these colours don't exist in reality, it's not the real image, it doesn't look contrived, it doesn't look overworked. This is a Diamine Teal, and this experiment was to do something a lot more finished. I just used Diamine Teal throughout. It's a beautiful colour, and it breaks down into these greens and blues and slight pinks as well. And once again, with all the Diamine standard inks, you get this amazing reaction with bleach. So the sails, the lighthouse were all bleached out. But it's not all about highly finished work. This is just a very simple, continuous line. This was actually using a Noodler's Creeper pen, which I think some of you may know what I've been going on about recently. Is an incredible bit of kit that it has for the size of the pen. You can actually get up to a 2mm width line out of it, as well as a hairline. So it's quite fun to do this. So then once the line was dry, just to add a little bit of water to make the ink bleed, I just used a bit of Twilight Black on that. And then using Robert Oster again, just some fun, making up insects, using bleach. And this is a portrait of, what was her name, Anya Taylor-Joy, who recently starred in The Queen's Gambit. This was using ancient copper, which is an amazing colour. And a lot of people spend a lot of time on portraits, and it can take an awful lot of time concentrating on the hair and other features. And what I've done with my portraits and the work that I'm using there is to let a lot of the features just make themselves. So once you've actually got the wetted areas, just pour the ink in and see what happens. And then literally with the Noodler's Creeper, I'm just concentrating on just a few areas of real detail, which is generally the eyes, eyebrows, and the lips. And the rest of it, it's just freeform. There's another one there. This is using something that I was beginning to become aware of, which is the different types of ink that are available. And a lot of the stuff that I was using up until this point was just standard inks. But of course, there are other inks that have got a lot more sheening qualities to them. And the last couple of years, there's been this craze for monster sheens. Now this is a Cult Pens Diamine, which has got, as you can see there, quite a heavy sheen, this lovely green sheen. And it's this beautiful purple. And if you flick some bleach into it, you get these bright oranges and bright reds, a bit like burnt embers. All from one ink, all from one ink. And taking it a stage further, you can see here with the Beetles, I've just been trying to use some monster sheens here. Monster sheens are not the easiest to use, I'll be honest, but they're still worth doing. They're great tonal range. And of course, because you've got these sheens and these metallics, it just gives you a lot more breadth of the amount of color that you're getting out of just one ink. And then we come on to another recent addition, which is the Shimmer Inks, which is good fun to use. Once again, they will break down with water, so you get your chromatic effects, and then you get your shimmer on top. So by mixing two together, you've got your gold and your silvers and all the chromatography from mixing the two inks together. And the standard inks, blended. And of not forgetting the calligraphy, which is just wonderful to have these inks that you can use in freeform calligraphy. I've just used some Shimmer Inks here, but the effect is quite stunning. And then some of you might know that earlier this year, Troublemaker Inks, which is in the Far East, started to come up with this incredible idea of having like a duotone. This is using abalone and petrichor, but you can see that if you just write with this, the actual handwriting also is duotone. Quite incredible. I mean, I don't know how they make these, but it's exciting. At that stage, I decided that I'd have a go at making my own inks. Well, I didn't actually make them, I mixed them. And I rang up Phil Davis at Diamine and said, could he make me a deep blue black that would have some chromatography to it, which I could use for both handwriting, calligraphy, and illustration. And he said that he would. And I was very pleased with the outcome. I think that I do like Diamine inks, that they are very good for art. And they have a great tonal range, and they react well with bleach. And for almost like a monochromatic artwork, they are very effective. So I've done standard inks, I've done Shimmer Inks, Shimmer, Sheen, and we've done the duotones. And I know that Bernardo's been involved with a project recently, which is a hybrid ink, which is a dye-based and a pigmented ink, which I think has got tremendous potential, because I don't know if you know the history of inks, but a lot of medieval history was recorded using inks. But as you probably know, they are fugitive in that many ink colours do fade. And so a lot of history was lost. It just faded away, literally. And that's when pigmented inks and watercolours were invented so that they would last longer. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how hybrid inks take off. I know that Noodlers, a lot of their work, their inks do include pigment, and it's something that I've got to do. I mean, that the art has, I've got to sort of try experimenting more with a range of different inks and see what we can do. But that's exciting times, I think, ahead in that respect. But here I'd had a go at creating my own mix inks, which I didn't want to be just pure colour. These have got chromatography to them. And so looking at the swatches here, you can see that there is a little bit of chromatography to each colour. And it's just to show what you could do art-wise to create more realistic and more detailed work. And this is just a colour wheel using those 4 colours and showing how it can be done, and to the finish that you can get if you really want to work at it. And once again, all of these are just from those 4 coloured inks. It's just careful mixing and having fun. So with these techniques and processes together, I decided that I would try a workshop. And so I went to the Sakura fountain pen gallery over in Deest and saw Catherine over there, who they have got a big interest in calligraphy, handwriting and fountain pens in Belgium and Holland. And it was great to work with them. And sorry, let's go this way. And there were some great people there doing some amazing stuff. I don't think they'd done this type of stuff before. So it was a full day, and we got a lot done. And I learned a lot from my students. So here we've got some Robert Oster. Sorry, I haven't got Robert Oster. This is Darmin, Maureen and Robert, which has got phenomenal chromatography. They've got their high-end shimmers, and they're actually with bleach. So you're getting something quite abstract there. But the workshops are great, and it's something that I really do want to try and promote more. And I did start doing it at the beginning of this year until the COVID hit. But some of the things that I realized that this was happening with this personal project is that although it started out with no goals whatsoever, and no end date in sight. In fact, I was literally just doing it to get my mind away from the humdrum of what I was doing. It suddenly became apparent that fountain penning had or has an amazing amount of potential, in that it can excite a big mix of people, from artists and calligraphers just to people who are simply curious. And I did do quite a bit of research at some of the workshops and asked people what they thought of it, and they found it engrossing, mesmerizing, captivating and relaxing, which is great news to hear, because I don't think that it's exclusive, that it is exclusive in any way. I think that anyone can get into this, and whether they want to do just a few blobs like here, or whether they want to do swatch cards, or whether they want to take it further if they're calligraphers, or even further if they're illustrators or watercolor painters. I think this very diverse medium has a lot to offer. I think the feedback shows that the techniques are quite fascinating and they are visually impactful. I think also for this day and age, it's something that encourages people to take risks and to make mistakes and to trust in a process. And I have a feeling, I'm going to come on to this in a minute, that there is something lacking in society at the moment with regards to all 3 of those: points that I just made, that we do need to experiment more, and we do need to take risks, because you only learn through making mistakes. And I thoroughly believe this. As with a lot of other art forms, you have to be patient with fountain penning, because sometimes the chromatography takes a while to happen. But if you are patient and you can relax, wonderful things do occur. And so I think for me, the future is just beginning. I think I've done enough to start the ball rolling. And in answer to my question as to why aren't more people doing this, I think the problem has been, as I said at the very beginning, I think a lot of people don't know what fountain penning can do. I think it's something that a lot of people will think is headed for obsolescence, that there are so many other writing implements out there which people may find a lot more easier to use than a fountain pen. And so therefore, actually buying a bottle of ink is not something a lot of people do, that they may opt for cartridges as opposed to a bottle. Apart from that, I think if you do talk to some people, they will look at you as though you're crazy and say, well, why would I want a fountain pen anyway? If I'm going to use a pen, I use something which is far easier to use. And if I am not going to use a pen, I can just tap it straight into my smartphone or into my tablet. I don't need a pen anyway. I can just get a bit of plastic or use my finger and just write it on the screen. And that is a fair point. But I think the point they're missing is the fact that this beautiful medium has got so much wonder to offer. And I think it was summed up recently when I was working on a project for a platform in Los Angeles, a creative platform called Decadent. And I had to look at the word, the name Decadent, and to try and evolve it. And I was looking through, just looking for inspiration, really. And I know that it was originally named after the Decadent Society, which is a bohemian group who were into nihilism and hedonism and that type of thing. But looking back, decadent is also a word which is, what's the word? It's associated with the decline of a golden age. It's a Latin word, it's a Roman word, and it describes a golden age which has had its day, and it's realizing economic stagnation, institutional decay, cultural and intellectual exhaustion. And with that comes decline, frustration, and insecurity. And I'm wondering if in some ways that's not what is happening to us right now. And certainly I read an article by a guy called Ross Douthat from the New York Times, who wrote a piece called The Age of Decadence, which is quite a compelling read, and I would recommend it. And he does talk about the fact that there are a lot of things going on around us at the moment which are a little bit repetitive. They are a little bit predictable, a little bit dull. And I think if you do add that together with another thing that I'm into at the moment, I don't know if you watch TED Talks, but there's a great TED Talk by Sir Ken Robinson called "Do Schools Kill Creativity?" Now, I'm probably not making a lot of sense here, but what I'm trying to say is that I do believe we could be in a beginning of a decadent age where we're probably expecting great things to happen all the time, and we're getting frustrated that those things are not happening as fast as we may like them, that there is a little bit of boredom around. And it's probably time for us to start looking at old skills or trying to push the envelope once again. But if you have got an education system that is risk averse, that spoon feeds, that doesn't encourage experimentation, and it won't let students make mistakes because our society is intolerant of people who make mistakes, and we punish people who make mistakes, even though we learn through making mistakes, I think we've got a problem on our hands. So I believe, in very strangely, is that fountain penning, even though it's something that not many people particularly think about or even care about, and probably think that it should be obsolete, probably has an awful lot of things to teach us. And it's just there, and there's lots of it. It's not expensive, and it can give us all a lovely, lovely experience. And so that's where I am with this project at the moment. I'm just going to stop sharing that now. Because, I mean, I'd like to put it to you that this lovely magic stuff that we all take for granted and think nothing of is a little pot of magic. And I think we should tell the world about it. And that's all I have to say. Thanks, Bernardo. And thank you to all of you for listening.
That was wonderful. I'm pretty sure everyone is delightful with this talk. So I have Andrew, who raised his hand first, then John, then Matheus. Okay, so Andrew, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Nick, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for a wonderful talk tonight. You raised some really good points. I actually work in an art department within education, just in an after-school capacity. And I do feel that you're absolutely right. Creativity is sort of being drilled out of people in many respects because you are being constantly told what to do rather than what to think. So thank you for raising that point. And it's one thing which I'm trying to fight for within. But my question to you is, for chromatography to really work well, is there particular papers which you use?
Yes, there are. Chromatography works best on really good quality papers. You will find that a very good quality cartridge paper, I use something something that you may well buy from as an education department. Sea White down in Brighton do that.
Yeah, we get Sea Whites.
Yes, I think it's a good thick paper and it works exceptionally well.
Oh, I'll have to give that a try because I've got a lot of fountain pen ink and we've got a lot of Sea White paper in our art department. So.
Give it a go, and don't forget to use lots of water and wait for the students to be patient. You don't have to shovel it on either. Do you know what I mean? You can just use a tiny bit, wait for it to just seep out and watch the colours come out of solution. Wait for it to dry, then go over it again with other stuff, do the detailing, add the bleach, have fun.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Hey, okay, now John, please ask your question.
Thank you, Bernardo. Thanks, Nick. Absolutely amazing to see you and speak to you tonight. And I mean, you know, I've just been a huge, huge fan of your work for a long, long time. I mean, when you were first posting your kind of mini portraits on Instagram, and sort of every day you were just totally blowing me away with the quality of the work and the simplicity. And in fact, actually, you sent me one when I got the first sort of bottle of Randall ink or whatever, and it's one of my sort of most treasured possessions. So thanks for tonight. Thanks for everything you do. I just want to say, you know, it was really fascinating to listen to you, you know, through the journey. I have sort of tried it myself. You know, I'm not going to hold up my own work and ask you to mark me out of 10. That would be too embarrassing. But no, just amazing, and love everything you do. So thanks. It was just a general comment. So keep on keeping on. Basically, brilliant stuff.
Thank you, John. It's good to see you too. Bernardo, there is something that I would like to do. I'd like to go back to the screen share again because there's one last thing I'd like to show.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Oh yeah. Can you share or you can't? Can you try to share if you see if you can?
You just disabled me. If you
Okay.
Okay.
1 minute. Go on.
Okay. I forgot to mention these last two, which are quite important. There are people out there now who are starting to get what I'm about. This was posted by a guy in Florida, which I thought was just magic, absolutely magic. He's never done anything like this before. He just went with it. And it blew me away. It says to me, Florida, for some reason. But this is the picture that I want to show you and talk about. This is a woman who came down from London called Wendy. She's into textiles. She's never done anything to do with paintings before in her life. And she did this. She literally trusted to the process. She just wet some paper. She added some Troublemaker abalone to the top section and some Noodler's Rome Burning to the bottom section. And she just waited and watched it. And this is what happened. And that particular image is something that I absolutely adore. It's just absolute chromatography, serendipity working in harmony. And it's just a chance outcome of just utter beauty. And I think this, to me, is what the real essence of fountain pen ink art is. I think even though I've done some incredibly highly technical stuff and are really trying to lay down some basic outlines of what you can do, this is just someone who's never done it before, just had fun, and it just happened. And that is how wonderful fountain pen ink can be. It can just give you these incredible outcomes.
Great, great. Okay,
I mean, what I can say is that there is a course online which I have designed mainly for people who can't get to workshops in this country, or sorry, because they're outside the country. It's just a very, very basic course, but it does explore chromatography, serendipity, and the use of bleach. I just thought I'd mention that if anybody's interested, you can contact me later if you want details. But
yeah, sure, it's a great course. I think loads of people here done it. I'm one of them. I think Apurva and Stephanie. Yeah, loads of more people.
All I'm trying to say is that if people have got some bottles of fountain pen ink, this girl literally just took a bit of each bottle, which happened to be on the table at the time, and this is what she created. And, you know, I look at it, I think, well, why can't I do things like that? Why doesn't it happen for me? You know, but the most beautiful thing is that I witnessed it, and that is enough. That's a reward enough for me.
Wonderful.
It is beautiful stuff.
It is. Right. Mateus, please ask your question.
Hi, Nick. It was very inspirational talk, and your art is great as always. I'm a big fan for a long time, as you know. Nick, I have a very quick question regarding iron gall inks. You know, what are your experiences with iron gall inks and using bleach specifically for your art?
Yes, bleach and iron gall. Iron gall is something that I don't use a lot of because obviously it's almost like a pigmented type ink. It's got stuff in there which is prohibitive, which gives it gives the ink a longevity, obviously, but it doesn't work with bleach, and the chromatography is not as great as the standard dyes.
Right. Okay.
But the answer is, I don't, you know, if I want to use something that's going to have a wow factor, I wouldn't use an iron gall, no. But they're still great inks.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
No, they don't wow as much as the standard inks or the dye-based.
Obviously, they don't have that many chemicals in it, like in terms of dyes, right? So you don't have that much spectrum, color spectrum in it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. We have Phil Masters, then Ryan, then Anne, and then Apurva. And if we have time, Steph, Apurva and Steph, if we have time. Go on, Phil.
Hi, that's fascinating stuff. Do you use neat bleach, and does it degrade the paper over time? I would imagine it would gradually eat through the paper.
Well, I don't use neat bleach, no. When you actually take the water, when you actually take the ink out of solution with a lot of water base, it becomes very thin. And therefore, you don't need concentrated bleach. In fact, in some of my work, I'm literally using almost like 99% water to 1% bleach. And it's working incredibly well in some really thin areas. So it's about finding, literally dipping your brush into some bleach and then putting it into a water pot and giving it a slight wash, doing a test piece, and then going in to do the work, depending on how thin or thick the area of ink you're working on is. So if it's really, really translucent, you're hardly going to need anything at all. I mean, it really is just a tiny hint of bleach to give it some effect. It will degrade paper if you're going to use it in a concentrated form, but also don't forget, if you're using bleach degrades in its own right. So, I mean, if you mix up a pot of 50-50, after about a month or so, that will, become weaker and weaker and weaker. And it also depends on heat and of the room or the temperature you're working at. There's so many different factors that you just need to have a little bit of practice stuff beside you. Just have a play before you get the right consistency. Don't go into the finished piece, straight away. Just do a little bit of a practice piece next to it, and just have a little practice and see what happens.
Right,
It's not a dead. There's no dead rules for it, if you see what I mean. It is a case of just experimenting and seeing what will work.
Thank you.
Great. Ryan is having a problem with his audio, and he sent me the question. So he asked me to ask you if you had any issues or worries about light fastness, because he recently had 2 inks change quite dramatically in a few days.
It is a problem. It is a problem. What I do tend to do is if I have got art which I'm going to frame, I do use a UV spray. It's called Giant, Giant. I use the matte Giant, and it works okay. I haven't had any problems so far. I just spray the artwork with it a couple of times, just gently, let it dry each time. It doesn't affect the inks, and it, you shouldn't really hang them in bright sunlight anyway. They are like watercolors. So yeah, I mean, I think they do have an effect. Some colors, you're never going to get away from it. Some pinks will degrade really fast. They will just break down really quickly. Oranges are the same. But, the majority of standard inks are not bad. And this is one thing that I think we need to ask ink manufacturers about, that if people do want to look at using fountain pen ink for art, and if it does grow, and if we can get fountain pen ink from the stationery shop into the art shop, which is a big deal, then I think ink manufacturers could put some more preservatives in there if they wish to. I think the technology is there to make them more light fast.
Great. Okay, Anne, I think Apurva left. Don't know. please ask your question, Anne.
Hi, Nick. I'm a watercolor dauber. Could I use watercolor paper to go wild with ink?
I would recommend it. Archers and Bockingford are absolutely fabulous.
Yes, got lots of that.
Yeah, well, that's what I use. I use Bockingford mainly, but Archers is a special treat.
Yeah, I'm not going to be doing too much experimenting with Archers, really, because I'm not made of money, but Bockingford will work, yeah?
Bockingford I use all the time. Yeah, it's great stuff.
Awesome, brilliant. Thank
Really
you.
good.
Good. Cool. All right, Steph, please ask your question. I need to give Nick the winners, and whilst you and Apurva ask your question, I'll send to Nick via Messenger the winners. Okay, Nick?
Okay.
1 minute. Okay, please ask your question, Steph.
To be fair, I was just sort of following up on what you'd said about the fact that a few of us had already done the course. And in the Fountain Pen UK Ink Club, quite a few of us post our experiments of what we've done following on from the different courses that following on from the course. So if anybody wants to do it and join in there, and we all, as I say, we all sort of share our experiments from there. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, you've done some lovely stuff. Very nice stuff.
No, it's been great. The course is brilliant. Love it. Thank you.
No, it's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Go on, Apurva, please ask your question.
Hey Nick, so I've messaged you a lot, so I just want to say thank you for putting up with my questions and just answering them. It's been great doing the course, and just kind of going back to a couple of things that were mentioned in chat, and you mentioned as well about generally kind of finding your creativity in a little bit. So I've recently had a little one, and he doesn't sleep very well, and I've spoken about this a bit, but you know, I was just awake at nighttime feeling miserable because I didn't know what to do. So finding your course and watching videos has really, really helped. And it's kind of helped me find my creativity. I don't know if you've seen, not trying to show off or anything, but I made some Christmas cards recently. So I made a post about them in the UK group, and quite a lot of the lovely people here made some orders. And part of that was inspired by the shading and things like that you did, and I used the glitter powders that you mentioned in your videos just to add that little bit of a shimmer to it, and yeah, they've been great fun. So just kind of using what I had and ended up buying through nightly retail therapy, but it's been amazing.
Brilliant. That's excellent. This is exactly what it is. I think that fountain penning is a great. It seems to be a very mindful thing. It's a great mindful medium, I think, and I think it simplifies. For me, I think it simplifies art. It makes everything make sense. You know, I think that in the Western world we seem to want more and more complex things, and yet if we look further east, if you look at the way that Miriam taught me to actually try and blur those lines, that if you look further east, you know, you have calligraphy, it's illustration, it's calligraphy, it's watercolor, it's all the same thing. It all appears in the same image. You know, I think we could learn a lot. I think we need to go back and possibly reevaluate a few things. And I think fountain penning can add a bit extra. And it's just there, and it's an unknown. It's it's right under our very noses. This wonderful stuff is there for the using, and just need to get the word out there.
I never knew it could do so much. I was just writing with it. I've been using ink for a few years now, and I never knew that it could do so much.
Well,
so
I can tell you, I did some work for some excluded children, and I had 4 students, and I was warned that they were very dangerous, menacing. They had, you know, and their minders came in. There were 2 adults for each child. I would say they were sort of around about 12 years old. They'd never ever seen a pen before. And they basically sat down. I took them through some very, very simple steps, and they were just absolutely, they were just mesmerized. All 4 of these sort of supposed these hoodlums, these young vicious, were just lovely human beings. They weren't vicious thugs at all. In fact, the irritation there were the minders. They were the ones who were bugging me. They were an absolute treat. So yeah, I think it is. It is. You're quite right. It's a very calming thing to do.
Great.
There's just
no worries.
one more thing. So one thing that I am working on though, that I need more patience. So it's really making me not touch the paper when it's drying. That's now a hard skill that I'm learning, but I'll get there, I'm sure.
Less is more. Less is
Yeah. I have a table full of swatch cards that I leave there, and hopefully the child doesn't get to during the day, but I tend to just find space for them.
Keep doing it. Keep going.
Thank you.
Great. Nick, can you please read the winners for us?
Yeah. Okay, do you want all three of them?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Do the way you want, in order, whatever. It's your presentation.
The winners are Maria Anderson, Rachel Vitette, and Matthias Pitak.
Yay!
Well done.
Well done.
And this is for the Robert Oster.
Yes, Robert Oster Citrus. Yes. Please send me an email with your details, and I'll make sure that this time the post office is not going to be closed. And I'm going to be able to send inks to everyone. Okay? Nick, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful, wonderful talk. I wish we had more time with you.
Labor like it's sexy.
Sorry, yeah. Thank you, Helen. Again. Right.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who's listened in. If you're into it, just spread the word. I think what we're doing as a group is the future. I think if we are in a bit of a slough, despondent at the moment, creativity is and really coming up with pushing the boundaries is the only way we're going to get through it. I think the more we get rid of this ridiculous creativity killing education system we seem to be developing, we've got to do something about it. So we've got to do it ourselves. If the government's not going to listen to us, then we just got to do it ourselves through these fantastic groups.
Yes, indeed.
Just spread the word.
We'll do that. Right. I'll see you guys tomorrow at the same time, 9 o'clock. And Nick, you're more than welcome to do another talk whenever you want. Just tell me and I'll organize. I'm pretty sure the numbers are going to be great again.
Well, Bernardo, once again, I really, massive thanks from all of us to you for persevering with this. It's a very, very useful thing that you've come up with, and it's it can only be good.
Thank you. And I was expecting you to come in a different way because you told me that you're going to be dressed in a different way.
I think we'll leave that.
Right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everyone.